Crypto markets are recovering nicely, with BNB making a 70% recovery from its weekend bottom. Greg joined me on the podcast today to discuss market movements, DeFi trends, and our portfolio moves from here. Greg, welcome to the BSC News Podcast.
You're listening to the BSC News Podcast, the leader in decentralized finance on the Binance Smart Chain. Here's your host, Ben Antes.
How's it going, Ben? It's been quite an exciting couple of weeks here in the crypto markets. We've had a lot of elevated volatility. We saw Bitcoin trading below 30,000 actually for a little bit last week. We tested around 31,000 again this week. And yeah, we kind of got a bounce going into the EU Open on Monday, sending Bitcoin back up 24% to 38K. And so we kind of saw this market wide, and notably BNB, as you mentioned, is up in a significant amount, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, the drop didn't bother me too much. It's like, this is crypto. At least that's how I took it. I did see a lot of people joking, like, only in crypto does everybody laugh while they lose half of their money.
No, definitely. On that first wick down below 30K, it was like about 5 a.m. here on the West Coast. And I just remember like looking at the chart and I couldn't do anything but smile and laugh. Like it was really just happening right there and then. And it's kind of interesting.
Like, I'm pretty sure I think it was on Sunday when it was like really bad in the morning. And I said to Lindsay, I'm like, today's going to be a hilarious day on Twitter. Yeah, because the market's just like getting demolished. I don't know, there's something wrong with us, I think. Like, imagine the stock market dropped 15%. It's like global meltdown. Everyone's panicking. Crypto drops 50%, and people are like sending memes about how they need new jobs, basically.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of interesting because I saw a lot of like big institutional players kind of touch on this, and it kind of points out how anti-fragile crypto really is. So we kind of had this massive move down, a 50% correction, liquidation events, but the system didn't really break. Like DeFi is still all here. It all works and it's fine. Like $1 trillion was scooped off of the market cap of crypto, but overall the market's fine and it survived. But on that same coin, like if we saw a 50% drawdown in traditional markets, the world would probably be in a lot more chaos. So this is kind of an interesting testament to crypto that these markets can kind of withstand these things.
Yeah, and really in traditional markets, they would actually just pause trading is what would have happened on an event like that.
Yeah, and you'd have weeks of just limit downs. Like you wouldn't be able to do anything. The market would open and limit down and limit down.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, it has been exciting. And I think there's a lot of good opportunities is really, I mean, let's like just think about what's happened to Bitcoin since last March, right? You know, from 2020. So it went up from, what was the bottom, 4K, all the way to
something like that,
like, or even below 4K, all the way to 60K with really not a lot of interruption, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so if we saw a 15 or so X over the course of a year and a half on Bitcoin, and then for it to find a new bottom, hopefully at 30K, that to me, that's great. And I saw 30K as an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. This is like an amazing opportunity because I don't think my long-term thesis of crypto has really changed. I still think we're kind of following this secular bull market we kind of continue to do, and that the momentum is going to continue at least into the end of the year, and kind of just seeing Bitcoin come back and test some of these key levels, it's never a bad thing. And this is kind of like a huge opportunity for people who weren't really into crypto to scoop up some 30K Bitcoin again. So that's always super nice to kind of have these moments where the market is showing that it's healthy. While a 50% correction is never fun, if we continue to make all-time highs from here, then this will be like 30K will be an extremely important level for probably the rest of Bitcoin history. Like if we continue to put in all-time highs, this will be a very strong level. And 30K Bitcoin is fairly notable, especially if you talk to anybody about that price last year or even 6 to 8 months ago. So it's definitely exciting to see that.
Yeah, and even so, BNB dropped into the mid 200s,
Let me
I
check
think,
that out.
and now it's sitting at 364 right now, or 369 right now.
Yep. Around 367 I have here on FTX. So somewhere around that range. And yeah, it got down to about $200, and it kind of did a similar thing to Bitcoin. It found this bottom in a previous level of consolidation, and it's kind of just these healthy things you're looking markets to do. Granted, we're still not out of the woods yet. This could definitely go back lower, but seeing this support set in, and if and when BNB continues to set in new all-time highs, that'll be extremely bullish and kind of just like a key level to watch. It kind of sets in not a hard price floor, but this is now a level that a lot of traders are looking to protect.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your thesis hasn't changed. I think we should revisit our theses, just kind of for fun, because we've talked about it before on the podcast. And so, given everything that happened, what is your thesis? How does it still stand?
Yeah, I think the base thesis is this bull market continues onward into December and January. And I kind of really like the idea that with more institutional involvement, we do kind of get this super cycle. And I don't think the super cycle is this up only to the right type of thing. I think the super cycle looks kind of similar to this. We get crazy rallies, and then we do get stark corrections, 30 to 50% corrections. But I don't think there's going to be a multi-year bear market in the imminent future. I think we will get these corrections where maybe we get a 30, 40% correction and crypto does kind of consolidate for a couple months or two. But as institutional involvement only increases, I think we're going to start to see this idea of a 2-3 year bear market start to dwindle.
No, I do agree with that. I think one thing I was thinking was with the super cycle concept was basically, everyone talks about the this time it's different or this time it's not different conversation. And while I do think there is something fundamentally different, which is broader retail and some amount of institutional involvement, which I think both of those just keep growing. What we did learn is that this time it's not different in terms of, I actually didn't think a 50% correction was possible. Now, because of this broadening participation, but it could also be there's more leverage traders now than ever before, right? And there's more of everything. So
Yeah, and I definitely agree there. I personally would not have ever expected a 50% pullback, but we got it and it's here. And I think it's important to note that my base case here is still kind of to stick what the cycle has shown us it does. So coming into December and January, I really think it's a great idea to kind of start taking these profits looking at history. And if we do get sort of this super cycle, it's not going to be up only. So there'll be kind of multiple more buying opportunities if it does exist. And so that's kind of where I sit in that. I think long-term Bitcoin still has tons of price action moving into the end of the year and probably moving forward. I don't think it stops at the end of the year. I will note that I think the end of the year is kind of a point where I'm starting to look and take stuff off of the table because we definitely will get more pullbacks like this, whether it's the super cycle or not.
yeah, I think where I'm at is on these uptrends, I'm going to keep kind of doing what I'm doing, which is just pulling my yield off the table. Because this week was the first week that I've bought a significant or added a significant position in almost months, it feels like, or probably like a month. I don't know. Every week is a long time in crypto, so it's hard to actually gauge time frames anymore. But I think these uptrends, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin work its way to 60 to 70K within the next couple months.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's still possible we easily see Bitcoin over 100, 150K by the end of the year. But yeah, overall, I think this is strong and it kind of puts in perspective for me because it's like one of my first bull markets, what crypto can really do and how volatile it is. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a bit of an eye opener. And that's why I'm sticking to this thesis of starting to take profits off the table when it historically makes sense to, even though I do think with increased institutional involvement, we will kind of follow this super cycle narrative and have increased interest.
Agreed. And so, with this pullback and with the opportunities, let's talk about some BSC token opportunities.
A hundred
Uh,
percent. Go for it.
about
You can kick this
100% all
off.
of them.
Yeah, every single one.
Everything.
No, I have a
Yeah.
couple few.
Yeah. So, what are your picks right now with this pullback?
Yeah, so with this pullback, I've been kind of a fan of the degen yields. I think I've just been like attracted to them. I don't know why, but anyway, it's not just the yields. I've really liked Wex Walt swap, and the reasoning behind this is I kind of just sat down and looked at the numbers, and Wex is emitting a lot less rewards than Pancake Swap. And kind of just the numbers that I was looking at a few weeks back is Wex is emitting about 4 million in rewards daily, while Pancake Swap was doing about 16 million in rewards. And if I can just go real quick, and this is on CoinGecko, and kind of just look at the volume of these two exchanges, Walt Swap is doing 151 million trading volume per day, while Pancake Swap is doing about over a billion. So Pancake Swap is doing about 10x more volume, but also emits a decent amount more rewards. And kind of just looking at the market cap of these two tokens, let me just pull this up here. So Wex has a market cap of 68 million, and Pancake Swap has a market cap of, let's see here, of 3 billion. So there's a lot more upside in the market cap of something like Wex, considering it only does Pancake Swap does 10x more volume when what the market cap's something like
30x
yeah.
almost.
So I kind of like have identified this gap, and I like the idea that when farming on Wex, it means I'm getting a greater portion of the rewards as well because there's less liquidity on there. So I kind of like this whole idea kind of bundled into one. I will say it hasn't worked out so great yet, but that's kind of just been with the entire market correction. So that's kind of one of my main picks there due to just that, like the data I kind of sat down and looked at there. It seems to make sense to me.
It does make sense. And I think, I mean, there was bad timing, right? More than anything, in terms of just
Exactly, and
the
it's fine.
market did
Like
what the market did.
the yield on that Wex BNB pool I'm in is easily doing over 1% a day. So I've just been compounding into that. And it's kind of just this whole idea that my long-term thesis hasn't really changed. So I'm not too worried on the dip. It's obviously not fun watching 50% drawdowns, but knowing that you're compounding and the main goal is, or the main idea is that it will be higher, kind of takes away from that, I think.
No, absolutely. What else other than Wex are you looking at?
Wex I like a lot. Another token I've been farming a lot is Jet Swap, another AMM token. And less, I'm a little bit more weary about this just because it seems the emissions are incredibly high. Like I think single staking Wex is earning over 5% daily right now. And it's just a newer token, so it's kind of like a similar thing. I figure I can accrue a large portion of the rewards. I am a little bit nervous. I do think something like AMMs and decentralized exchanges may have already sort of had their run, and Pancake Swap kind of dominates liquidity. So I'm a little bit wary there, but that's also just another token I'm farming. And that kind of loops around to I've kind of been back on these high emission AMM tokens. And I'm not quite sure if they'll repeat the same success, but they have had success in the past. So kind of been on those a fair bit recently.
Mm-hmm. And any other ones?
No, I think I'll kind of close it off there. If there's any curious people, Nerve is really interesting. I like that they're doing things both on Binance Smart Chain and are looking to move to Solana, and that's like a stable swap platform. So that one's pretty interesting. Other than that, it's kind of just been the usual. All of course, always the big ones: Pancake Swap, Auto Farm, all of that good stuff. I'm curious to hear what your picks are, though, Ben.
So I think we talked about this maybe even last time, which is I'm still on these yield optimizer tokens, and I'm on auto. I'm into auto in particular. I think biggest fundamental reason for that is obviously the way it buys back auto as like a profit share mechanism, but also their aggressiveness going cross chain. And because I was messing around with Polygon last night, and it was really nice how I moved over there and then I, did some stuff with Sushi Swap. And then guess where my liquidity went to Compound? It went to Auto Farm.
Yeah, which is super cool. They're kind of just spreading out, trying to capture as much market share. One thing I will note here, real quick, before I let you go again, is I do like that these tokens have capped supply. And this is kind of a different route that I'm kind of farming currently. And it does make me a little bit like scared that they have unlimited supply and no sort of cap on token supply. So something like yield optimizers are definitely a lot less risky in that sense.
Right. And I think the other part of my auto thesis, or really this applies to any yield optimizer, is they just provide a service. So there's some amount of value in that, you know, they provide a service so they're useful and they can go after as much liquidity as they want across any chain they want. And so I would see something like Beefy also probably qualifies in here with Auto Farm, and they're so
Definitely.
early to this space and they're going cross chain. And, I bet they end up on Ethereum at some point once, assuming Ethereum becomes more usable. I would not be surprised to see Auto Farm on Ethereum, and then all the people that are starting out on things like BSC or Matic or Heco Chain, they're not like, who do you think they're going to use if they go to Ethereum? They're going to use Auto Farm. The same reason why when I went to Matic or Polygon Network, I was like, okay, Auto Farm it is because I already use it, and now I'm a shareholder of it, so why wouldn't I use it, right?
Yeah. And
Uh,
so yeah, I like that. That's really interesting.
so I've been debating how much of a bet to put on Auto, which I usually, with the smaller project type deals, I keep a much smaller percentage. But there's something to be said about piling in a little bit into a smaller project with a ton of growth potential. And I don't know, I think Auto might be that one for me. I think it checks off a lot of boxes, right?
I definitely like that.
Did I just
And
sell you Auto?
I think you did. And we've definitely been talking about this a bit. And it's I'm definitely leaning towards it because that is something where it's like these AMM tokens are extremely inflationary, and it is easy for them to kind of spiral down because people just continue to take profits from the incentives that are given out. So that's kind of just something where I'll continue to monitor sort of like the market cap of tokens like Wings and Wex and kind of just see how much volume they're doing. And I'll probably end up consolidating some of those positions because I don't think I need that much exposure to AMMs when there's other stuff going on, such as yield optimizers and options platforms and all sorts of just other things going on the Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah, another one I like is FTS. Fortress has a lot of TVL. I haven't checked in a little while, and obviously the TVL is down since the entire market is down.
Of course.
Pulling it up right now to see where it's at. Well, it's down to 19 million now, but I think a lot of that has to just do with major pullback. So, wait, no, sorry, that just updated now. 53 million. Okay, I didn't think it would be as low as 19. So, what I like about Fortress is, of course, I can yield farm with it multiple places for high APY, and then Fortress has a cap supply. So, to me, that's a good liquidity hold. And the
Definitely.
token has done pretty well, and it probably has a lot to do with the jet fuel ecosystem and the yield opportunities with it. Because on Jet Swap, Fortress gives you what, like 700%, 640.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's also really notable that I noticed with the launch of Jet Swap. It kind of boosted the entire jet fuel ecosystem because
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of able to bring a lot of yields to these jet fuel tokens, which was super nice for the ecosystem. I think I remember seeing on like the launch of Jet Swap, nearly all the tokens were up over 50%. And then the market correction kind of took it down. But looking at Fortress,
Like FTS has definitely outperformed the market for the last week and a half, without a
exactly.
doubt.
And same thing for Fuel as well. Looks like it got a nice little bounce
And you know
into the
what's
hundreds.
Fuel's an interesting play right now. So emissions are going to be drying up sooner than later. And so fuel will be a fully deflationary token.
Yeah, that's actually super interesting. And that's another yield optimizer token there. My only thing with that is Fuel has had a little bit of trouble getting adoption to their yield optimizer. Their TVL is fairly low compared to someone like Beefy or Auto Farm.
Yeah. So I think the other thing about Wings too is I believe they have plans to build a yield optimizer. And so I would imagine Wings is going to play into that somehow. And so your play on Wings right now might be a pretty strong play, to be honest. We'll find out what happens. But if Wings
Yeah, I
gets
like that
tied
one.
into that,
And kind of looking at Wings, I sat down and I looked at somewhat similar numbers, kind of just looking at the yield and how much I can get. And Wings is still a fairly small AMM. It has something like a market cap between 3 and 5 million. And a lot of these other AMMs on the Binance Smart Chain, like ApeSwap, like Wex, just to name a few, are kind of trading around 50 to 60 million market cap. So I definitely see upside for them. And kind of like my thesis here is I'm still I still see value in these tokens, and in that sense I'm collecting the yield and not really being the yield. Even though I have taken a decent amount of loss on Jets, I'm kind of still just collecting this yield with the speculation that there is more value that the token can capture.
I think so. And I'm even thinking, so I do have some Wings BUSD that I had actually earned from FTS BNB. So I might just toss that in the optimizer and let's just see what happens over the next 2 to 3 months. Because
Definitely,
if they
yeah.
find more usefulness for Wings and pull it into potential yield optimizers that they roll out, that token actually could fly. And so this your thesis as a basically an accumulation period is
Exactly,
pretty
yeah.
strong. I'm gonna be honest. So I
And
might.
we
What's the yield optimizer rate on that at the moment? Like a
Yeah, I'm
bajillion.
actually looking right now because Jet Fuel has a few vaults for the Wings. So Wings BNB is 5% daily, Wings BUSD is 5% daily, and then the Wings single staking is just below 5%. Um, and yeah, why I'm somewhat comfortable with this position is because we saw something very similar in Pancake Swap. Like there was definitely this accumulation period where the token was losing value because of how many emissions it was giving out. But that was when Cake was trading at like 30 cents, and it's now trading at like $20. So I'm kind of sticking to this thesis. I am definitely wary that the AMM space was really big in DeFi summer and kind of early this year for the Binance Smart Chain. So it could be a little bit saturated, but other than that, I definitely see value in a lot of these AMM protocols.
Yeah, and I just love that you had to bring up the pancake thing. I was farming that on day one.
Yeah,
So
I know, me as
so many
well.
cake were sold so
Oh,
cheap.
definitely.
That's funny. All right, so what's your let's just close it up with a what's your short-term market prediction?
Short-term market prediction, I wouldn't be surprised if we come back and test a little lower. I honestly think we're in a somewhat of no man's land here. We're kind of coming into resistance on a lot of trading things here. I did take a position early this week looking for this squeeze, which was kind of nice. But other than that, I'm kind of just sidelined yield farming and watching as we come into resistance here. We could break out of this and continue higher, sort of get like this V recovery with momentum, or we could go back a little lower, and just to give some perspective on what that would look like on BNB, somewhere around like 280 to 300, and that would be where I'm a potential interested in being a potential buyer. But as of now, kind of just watching with no man's land, kind of like a 50-50 whether we break out here or come back down to sort of test these lows again and make sure they're really support.
No, for sure. And it's only Wednesday, so there's plenty more of the week. And I hope the move happens before the weekend, because I don't take any weekend move to mean much of anything anymore.
Yeah, and I
So,
kind of like to stick to this idea that Three Arrows Capitals and a lot of big trading firms throw out that like the weekend flow is often wrong. And it tends to be right. It's definitely not like 100%, but it's definitely an interesting concept to think about.
no, I mean, I think so. Like on Sunday when Bitcoin hit like 30K, I actually texted a buddy and said, "Don't worry, Bitcoin will be at 38 tomorrow," because it fell from 38 to 30. And
Yeah, and
then
that's like the exact thing I was looking for. I saw Ethereum pretty low, and I was seeing multiple tweets that the markets were pretty thin.
Mhm.
There was not a lot of just volume being traded. And this is very similar to like the event that happened on Thanksgiving where the books weren't really full. And so it's really easy to move the market. And it doesn't mean necessarily it's easy to move it down. It's also easy to move it up. So I kind of took this position knowing that the volume and the books were kind of thin, looking for this sort of squeeze. And now it's kind of just interesting what happens here. It can definitely continue and kind of get this. It would be sick if we got just a V recovery straight back up to all-time highs, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we kind of sit around and consolidate in this area for a couple weeks or so.
Yeah, I do know if I was a margin trader or a leverage trader, I wouldn't want to hold a position over the weekend.
Yeah,
Because imagine you're long Bitcoin and then in 1 hour you get liquidated and then the price is right back to where it was before, with the position you opened or whatever. Like that's just got to be painful.
definitely.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time and let's look forward to a good market for the next week.
Yeah, it should be exciting.
I think so.